Most of the time, when I talk to you about your desire to lose weight, what you tell me is that you really want to lose the stubborn fat. It's not just the weight. There's a difference between losing weight and losing fat. And when I kind of dig in with you a little bit about what you really want to lose that fat that you haven't been able to get rid of. And in fact, it's fat that is creeping up on you since you started perimenopause and going through menopause. And I say creeping up, some of you tell me that it actually feels like overnight you've gained 20 pounds, or you look in the mirror and you feel like your body has just like exploded in the middle section in a short period of time. And it can feel like a short period of time. Just kind of side note, when we dig in a little bit and really examine what's been going on, most of the time we find out there were things happening months or even years before you realize that it's happening. I know that was my situation. In fact, things started changing for me in my later 30s, and I ended up having a hysterectomy, which is a real common thing I'm finding. Women that have had hysterectomies in their 30s. I really have a whole podcast planned on that and how those later 30 hysterectomies play a role in both the healthcare system and the attitudes toward women and their changing bodies, and how that kind of sort of moves us into menopause, but not today. I'm going to stay focused. So my point with the whole fat versus weight discussion is that you tell me you want to lose weight, we dig in, it's actually the stubborn fat that you want to get off of your body, and weight that's been coming on more recently in the last few years. And there are a lot of other things that go along with that. I pause because it's difficult to put into words what I'm really wanting to say to you about this. We're focused on the fat and losing the fat because that feels like the most urgent, prominent struggle that we're having. There's actually a lot more going on, but for the purposes of this episode, I want to stay focused on losing the fat and the fact that that absolutely can be done, but there's some nuance to it. And it can be done without you joining a gym, without you hiring a trainer, without doing another diet that's temporary, or buying shakes and powders or pills, or even doing shots. Not that I'm against that, but you don't have to do those things. And you can get the fat weight off of your body despite how your hormones have been fluctuating and creating havoc in your body, and your metabolism feels like it has slowed down to the point almost it feels like it's dead. Despite all of that, you actually can lose the fat. You can sustain that fat loss, but it has to be done very strategically. In fact, I would argue that everyone needs to lose fat with a strategy that's healthy and is sustainable, but especially once we get into this perimenopause and menopause and post-menopause phase of life, it absolutely has to be done strategically and metabolically, okay? So I show women who are over 40 how to get out of that like stuck feeling and get beyond being able to lose like that 5 to 10 or so pounds. Because most anybody can lose 5 to 10 pounds with a lot of the dieting and the gimmicky stuff and, Googling for advice. You can use those things and drop 5 to 10 pounds. It's not going to be fat always, but getting beyond that, keeping that weight off and getting beyond it is really what you're after, right? So that's what I do. And I do it in a way that I really give women these super practical steps to implement. They're healthy. They are really focused at you losing that fat in a very healthy way. But ultimately, it sets you up for success, both in reaching the goals that you have, like right now, wanting to drop that 20, 30, 40, 80 pounds of fat. But also that approach that I take with women sets you up for sustainably keeping that weight off and being healthier, stronger, more active, having better sleep, keeping your bones strong, having more of a firm physique in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. I tell women all the time, what I do is about preventing you from falling down and breaking a hip. It's about falling down and having a bruise. If you have to fall down, it's about having a bruise instead of a broken hip. And I truly mean that. It is difficult in this like instantaneous sort of, gratification kind of culture that we have. It's difficult even for those of us in our 50s to look beyond right now and think about what I'm doing and the impact that it's going to have 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. But if we genuinely mean it when we say that we want to do this for our health, then you have to really come to grips with that being your reality, okay? So what I talk about all the time is how you can stop using diets that really leave you feeling like disgusting, or feeling like, once the rebound weight comes on, it makes you feel like I'll just never be able to do this with any kind of success. And I show women how you can actually get your body to a place where you feel good, the weight loss cycle ends, and internally you change. Like physically, internally you change. Your metabolism is built up. You can eat more food. You can enjoy anything and everything that you like to eat and drink. But you have to stop approaching weight loss in the wrong way. You have to approach it in this really strategic way that I teach. That's why what you did in your 20s and 30s is not going to work for you anymore. Many of you tell me that all the time. What I used to do isn't working. And you'll learn how to make it work now, but how to make it work in a way that keeps all of that fat off of your body. And so I share all of this in our 12-week MRS program, the Metabolic Resuscitation System with Women. And the reason that I do that is because I lived it. And you guys, if you've listened to the podcast or you follow me on social media, you have probably heard me talk about my story. And it was in my later 30s that I didn't realize what was going on, but my body was changing. In my early 40s, more changes took place. And that was the beginning of me figuring out that something was different. And then as I moved through those couple of years, really dialing in, getting educated, and putting that education into a process and a strategy that was doable for the crazy busy lifestyle that I had at that time. And the diet piece of it, the nutrition protocol piece of it was just one small component of that larger, more comprehensive approach to life. We all like to talk about, needing to change our lifestyle. But when it comes to actually doing that, it's difficult to actually do. And what I do is put all of the work of my last 10 years of life, my own personal experiences and my experiences with helping women, I put all of that into a very doable, succinct, entire comprehensive program with coaching and support that helps women to get to that place where it really is just the way that they're living. That's what we mean when we talk about changing our lifestyle. You just get to the place where the way you approach life every day is in this healthy way. And it's not something that you have to think about doing. It really becomes second nature. And that's why I do what I do. I want you to be able to have that kind of freedom in your life. And so my purpose is to really show you how you can improve your health in ways that fit into your busy life, work life, family life, and how when you do that in the beginning stages, that's how you start melting the fat off of your body. And the bottom line is you don't have to settle for feeling old, for looking a way that you don't want to look. I tell women all the time, they'll say, well, I don't expect to feel like I did when I was 30 or look like I did when I was 30. Why not? Like, why don't you expect that? I feel, and I would argue, look better than I did when I was 30. And you can absolutely do that in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s. The thing is, you've got to recognize that what you're doing is not working. You've got to be willing to change it. And it's not your fault that you're stuck. I mean, we grew up, those of you, I would say, if you are anywhere from, 41, beyond 40, and 55, or even like approaching 60 or in your early 60s, we're in a generation of women that grew up with this really strong diet culture. That's just what was happening as we grew up. We grew up with Richard Simmons, with Weight Watchers commercials, Nutrisystem commercials. We grew up with Jane Fonda's. We grew up with the grapefruit diet and all of these crazy ways of focusing how we eat. Fat, counting calories, cutting all carbs out, counting fat grams. I mean, you name it, and we were inundated with that. And so that extreme focus on losing weight, and I dare say, for those of us who are Caucasian, our goal was always to be as skinny as possible. And I think there are some cultural differences with how we had different perspectives on what the ideal was, what beautiful was, what the perfect body was. By and large, I think those of us of this age really did hear that message over and over, that thin was in, right? Skinny was the goal. But especially for little white girls like me, we wanted to be as skinny as possible. We were told that's what boys liked. Hell, if I remember back to high school, the skinny girls were the girls getting asked out on dates. And I really was not. When I look back at pictures of myself in high school, I was not fat. I was not obese. I was probably a healthy thick if I, think about how we might describe it now. But I felt like I was one of the heavier, fatter girls. And I wasn't the girl that everyone asked out. And that really made me and my drive to be skinny even stronger. So my whole point with all of that was, it's not your fault that you feel stuck right now, because what we learned about that diet culture and how we lost weight at that time, we try to now use, and it just doesn't work for us. And no one really teaches us, especially, so that's one part of the problem, right? This diet culture we grew up with and how that's not going to work for us. Then we get into this transitional stage, and perimenopause and those hormone fluctuations can start, like I said, in your later 30s. Definitely it's happening into your early 40s without you even realizing it. And then you move into, further chaos with your hormones and your metabolism. And no one teaches us how to navigate this transitional stage of life. And it gets even more complicated at this stage. And this stage arguably can be about 1/3 of our total lifespan. It can last for about 15 years for some of us. And like I shared in the beginning of this episode, and I share all the time, I struggled even before perimenopause. And so then you add perimenopause and menopause on top of it, and I struggled a lot. In this last year, I've had another fluctuation with my metabolism and hormones, and I struggled again. And I plan on sharing with you guys about how I've lost 20 pounds, in the last several months, and my quest to do that, and what went into it. Another episode. Let me stay on track here. I did struggle. I lost the same 20 to 100 pounds multiple times in that period of life. And I really want you to know that you didn't get the information and didn't understand how to navigate things. I realize that that's not your fault, but there absolutely is strategy. And I teach it to women over 40 all the time, and it works. And you can enjoy food that you love. You can enjoy the drinks that you love while reaching your body and your health goals in and during, beyond menopause. You can do that in sustainable ways, even if you have a crazy busy schedule, but you have to start with knowing that it's possible. And I hope that is what I show you guys all the time is that possibility does exist. You are able to accomplish it. The problem is, and I will die on this cross of trying to educate you about this and help you with this, but the trouble for a lot of us is, and I'm just going to be really blunt about this, a lot of you say you want it, but most of you aren't willing to learn what it takes and do what it takes to get to this space of sustainable health and a body that you love. I have that total wellness group. I invite you guys to it all the time. I share about it on social media. I share it here. The links are in every single episode show notes. And in that group, I share tips and strategies and healthy advice constantly. I do free groups. I probably will do one. If you're listening to this, you're getting a little insider information. I think I'm going to do another one of those free day metabolic reboot reset groups in May. They're 3 to 5 days. I give women a complete plan to get a jump start on losing weight and getting healthy. And the reality is that of all of that free information that I give, and I'm in one-on-one conversations with you guys daily. I have hundreds of one-on-one private messages going on right now on my Instagram profile and direct message, and on Facebook, in private messenger, and in emails every day. Hundreds of them currently. Like I said, I'm in hundreds of them, and I give free advice to women. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Fewer than 10%, I would maybe say like 5 to 8% even, of you use that advice and actually make any change. And that's staggering. When I think about kind of on average, 10% of the women who get in my total wellness group, who sign up for my short free groups, who I'm in conversation with, fewer than 10% of them will actually follow through and do anything with the free advice that I give them. And the reality is that I think it comes down to the kind of person that you are. And this is a huge generalization, so don't get pissed off at me when I say this, but it really does, the pattern that I've seen in the last 10 years of doing this work is that there are people who say that they want something. They say they want change. They say they want to get healthy. They say they want all of these things, right? And they talk about how much pain they're in by living in this state of being unhealthy and overweight and having the clothes in the closet that don't fit, and all of the reasons that they want this change. And despite that pain that they are in, they don't make the change. And so that's the one group of people. It's these people that will get kind of, all excited about something. For example, they'll get into one of my free groups, or they'll join the Total Wellness group on Facebook, that free community, and they'll ask a bunch of questions, and they'll get all revved up about making change. And they'll tell me how they are going to start with, I'll send a free resource to them that gives you 5 changes that you can make this week to lose weight. That's just an example. And I'll ask them, like, are you willing to use this free resource and implement these 5 changes so that you can actually see some progress in the next week? And they're like, yes, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, here it is. Implement these things. And then how about if I check on you in a week or 2, and you can share with me like any struggles that you're having or how it's going, right? And I send out that resource. Hundreds of women get it all the time. Every week, hundreds of women get that resource from me. They tell me that they're going to implement it. And when I check on them in a week or 2, they've gone right back to that vicious cycle of misery. They're not doing any of those simple changes that I gave them that are free. And they just go right back to where they were. That's one kind of person. And overwhelmingly, I will say that's the majority of the women that I talk to. And I find it really sad. Now, I know there are all kinds of extenuating circumstances and things going on. And some people have some really serious life things come up that are unexpected that prevent them from implementing all 5 changes or whatever their, the best of, the best laid plans, right? But the bulk of the women who don't follow through, they don't have any real reason for not following through. They just don't. They, like I said, they get excited for maybe, 2 or 3 days, and then they go right back to doing what they were doing before, which is the comfortable, even though we know that's not really comfortable when we examine it, but they just fall back into those same old habits that don't serve them. And you may be listening to this podcast and think, that's me. I've talked to you, and I've, gotten all kinds of free resources, and I really haven't done anything either. And I say that not to make anyone feel bad, but to point out that is the reality. Some of you have listened to this podcast for the last year. Some of you have been in my total wellness group for years. Some of you have followed me on social media platforms for years, and year after year, you do nothing and you are sitting in the same place. Again, I don't call it out to make you feel bad, but just as a reality check. I never want that to be you. I want you to be in the group of women who are like, okay, I'm starting with this free stuff, and this has got me such great results that I'm motivated to continue my journey for the long haul. And you actually make real change. Some of you with my help, many of you with my help, you get into my 12-week MRS program and you make a complete overhaul of your life in a way that is tremendous and life-saving, literally. Some of you do it without my help, and that's great too. But the point is, I want you to be like that second group of women, that group of women who get advice from me, listen to me here, get free resources, join my total wellness group, do one of those short free plans, and then you're like, I'm motivated, and that's a kickstart for your long-term journey, and you turn your life around. That's why I do the things that I do. It's why I created that free community that has over 5,500 women in it now. I want to help you make a real change in your life. And my goal is to impact as many women as I possibly can in that positive way so that you live long, healthy, active lives. And if you do the things that I give you to do for free, you can make a huge dent in your progress. I've had women message me who have told me that they've lost 15 pounds just using my free resources, listening to the podcast, doing a free group with me, and then implementing, longer term changes that I advise them to implement. And that makes my heart sing. That makes all the things that I do worthwhile when I hear that I've been able to help you change your life. So today, after having said all of that, probably 20 minutes or so, I want to share a little bit more about this fat loss quest and kind of how it works, because I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions that women have about losing weight. And again, it's not your fault. No one has given you the strategy. Our generation is, of this like mindset that it's about deprivation and cutting back and calories and fat grams, and it's not. And now today you go on social media and it's completely confusing. I mean, there are scammers and spammers, and there's a mass amount of information, a lot of it contradictory, in fact, about how to lose weight in menopause, how to keep it off. And a lot of that's just flat out wrong, I'll tell you. And so it's really overwhelming. A lot of you put in a lot of effort into eating healthy or what you think is healthy, and you're frustrated because you do lose maybe, 4 or 5 pounds, and then you just gain it back and even more. Maybe you are kind of one of the women that I talk to a lot of times who tell me that you just feel like nothing has worked. You've done all of the diets, you've tried this plan and that plan, you've joined the programs, and you feel like you're starting over and over and over all the time, and you're tired, you're exhausted by it, besides feeling the exhaustion and the fatigue of menopause, right? And some of you tell me, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to eat. I'm confused, overwhelmed, nothing works. And so now I don't even know. It's so crazy and chaotic that I just don't even know what's my first step, right? Some of you even get to the place where you feel like, you know what, this is just how it is. This is just how my body is going to be for the rest of my life. I watched, my aunts and my older sisters and my mom get fat in their 40s and 50s, and my family's all overweight, and I didn't really have that great of a chance at having a great body anyway. And so I might as well just kind of throw my hands up in the air and settle for or accept that. I hear that a lot of times. I just should be, I should just accept that I'm not going to be happy with the way that I look. And this is just the best that I can feel. Or this is what it means to get old. And I'm really here to tell you that that is absolutely not the case. There aren't many things that are farther from the truth than you having to settle for that, and that being what it means to be a woman in your 40s and 50s and older. It just doesn't. You can be a better version of yourself now. You can look better, you can feel better than you ever have, ever in your life before. And yes, that includes feeling better and looking better than you did when you were 25, 28, 30, 32. You just have to know how to strategically go about this process so that you get the results that you want now and that you keep them for the long haul. And you do it in a way that you're not giving up everything that you enjoy about food and drink. And you probably don't even realize, and this is where I'm going to ask you to open your mind to believing, okay? I know it's difficult to believe that it's possible for you when you've, tried a lot of things and they haven't worked, but I want you to right now, do this with me right now. Take a deep breath and go, okay, I can lose this fat weight. I can get stronger. I can have more energy, and I can have a healthier body and mind. And I can actually do it with an approach that only takes me a few hours a week of focusing on how I move and how I eat and what my mindset is like. I want you to truly believe that. Open yourself up to the power of the belief that brings you, because it's true. Our clients in the MRS program work out 3 days a week, 20 to 25 minutes a day. And that's absolutely possible. When you have the right nutrition approach for your metabolism and the right movement approach for your metabolism, which doesn't take much time, neither one of those take much time. When you have those two things in place, you've got, I would say, 85 to 90% of the battle won. That is the bulk of the battle. Now, there's a lot of mindset work in that nutrition approach and that movement approach and outside of even nutrition and movement, but those two things are the biggest bulk. And I would say nutrition is the even bigger bulk. I have some women who cannot do any kind of formalized workouts, and they lose a huge amount of fat off of their body and change the way their physique looks. So it really, I would say, leans most heavily on the right nutrition strategy. Then movement and mindset are right there neck and neck with it. In workouts, like I said, they can be super short if they are super effective and they're focused on your metabolism, as I like to call it. That's exactly what I teach women. And so what I want you to understand, though, is that this part of the strategy of the approach that I put in place for you means that it has to happen in sort of these steps or these stages. For example, let me kind of give you a scenario so that I can make this really clear. Women who do my short reset or reboot programs, and we focus on getting their metabolism to kind of like, we jumpstart your metabolism, they will lose 3 to even 7 pounds, as much as 7 pounds, in that about a 5 to 7 day period. I give you a 3-day plan. You use it for 5 to 7 days, and women will lose 3 to 7 or so. I think 7 point something is probably the most that any of the women that I've worked with using that short plan they'll use. That is a short starting place. It's a jump start. It's a short-term plan that I give women. A lot of the women who start in that program will then continue because that momentum, feeling good about dropping those few pounds in the beginning is just the beginning for them. And they're like really focused on using that momentum for the long term. And so many of those women will go right from that short group into our 12-day metabolic resuscitation program. When you get into the 12-week program with me, though, you do not continue to do a plan like that short reset plan, because once I take you in there, we've gotten you sort of this like beginning of a jump start. And then depending on your body, depending on your goals, your hormones, all the biofeedback and information we take in, we decide what step to put you in or what stage of fat loss to put you in so that we can get you to your ultimate goals of living life, happy, lean, eating what you want. That maintenance, if you will, that it's not a path that's the same for everybody from A to Z or from start to maintenance. There is a staging that has to happen. There are phases and steps that have to happen. And it doesn't go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It might go step 1, step 2, back to step 1, step 1, step 1, step 1, step 2, back to step 1. That is that cycle of how we move you through those cycles or those steps, as I explained, of losing the fat. And that it has to happen for you to do it in a sustainable way. Here's the problem with all the other ways that you have attempted to lose weight. The old diet mentality, the old diet approach, the restricting calories, the calculating, food and weighing it, the tracking, even nowadays, the tracking macros, the keto, the low carbs, all of the approaches that you find out there now, they are all based on one single approach. I don't care what they call it. They can call it a million different things, but they are all based on one same approach. And that is deprivation. That is restricting. That is cutting out. And they keep you, whatever program you go into, they keep you on that one approach. Some programs, if they have a calorie focus, they'll say, oh, your calories, you need to be eating at 1,200 calories. And some I've seen as low as 800 calories. A lot of the pre-packaged kinds of food programs will actually cut you to an 800 calorie intake a day kind of approach. Whatever it's set at, whatever the calories are, or whatever gimmick they're using to have you eat in the way that you're eating, it's all deprivation, restriction, cutting back, whatever labels they put on it. And they keep you in that same exact approach all the way through. What happens when you do that is your metabolism has already gone from, up here. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hand gestures. I'm going to try to describe this really simply, but your metabolism is humming along at a certain point. As your hormones change and as you go into menopause, your metabolism starts to go down. It starts to decrease, right? It starts to slow down as we often hear it described. That is a natural thing that occurs in our bodies as women as we get to this transitional phase. But then most of us have done this kind of dieting in the past, so our metabolism is even lower. It's running at even this lower rate. So when menopause hits, it takes a nosedive and it's even slower, right? And that's where the resuscitation part of our MRS program comes from, because women would tell me all the time, I feel like my metabolism is dead. It's not slow, it's freaking dead. Well, if you are eating 1,000 calories a day or 1,200 calories a day and you continue at that pace, what also happens is your body goes, oh, okay, you used to eat 2,500 calories a day. Now you want me to survive on 1,500 calories a day. So after you lose, 5, 8, or maybe even 10 pounds, if you're lucky, your metabolism goes, wait a minute, we've got to start surviving, and we've got to do all of our systems have to all run on 1,500 calories instead of 2,500 calories. So what your metabolism does is decides that I've got to slow down even farther to be able to accomplish everything I need to accomplish for this female body to survive. So it down cycles again.
there's only so many times you can cut calories. So, you say, oh, well, I need to cut calories again because now my weight loss has plateaued, or the scale has stopped moving. So your reaction to your metabolism doing that is, I'm going to cut back again. So you cut back to 1,200 calories. And a lot of these, so-called coaches out there in these programs, that's what they will tell you to do. You're like, well, my weight loss has stopped and you were eating 1,500 calories. So they have you cut to 12. Again, it's all about restricting and depriving. And that seems to make logical sense because our mind, our teachings over the years have been, well, cut. If we stop losing weight, then cut more out. The reality is it's a vicious cycle that you get your metabolism into this constant downcycling, and it's adapting in this negative way and running slower. And eventually, not only will you stop losing weight, not only will you stay stuck in that plateau, but you will actually start gaining weight because your body has nowhere else to go. You've cut all you can cut. It's running on nothing. And anytime you eat anything, you gain. I'm eating little to nothing, and Monkey's going to bark. That is where you get to when you message me and you say, I don't understand it. I'm eating basically nothing all day long and I'm still gaining weight. That's why. And so what we do instead is we put a nutrition strategy in place for you that helps to balance your hormones and helps to get your metabolism revved up again. And we start to get that metabolism to burn so that it teaches your body to burn more of that fuel for energy rather than storing it as fat. And yes, that is a really simplified version of what goes on from a chemistry perspective in your metabolism, but that's the gist of how it works. So back to this fat loss, these steps that you have to take. When your body responds by starting to slow down the fat loss, what we do is we don't cut you back. We can very strategically decide what stage of fat loss you need to be in to keep stoking that metabolism and getting it to build up a little bit more. Then we very well may cut you back a little bit. But that kind of cycling and knowing when you need to go into which phase of fat loss so that you continue to make progress is not the same for everyone. And that's part of the beauty of what we do with women in the MRS program, purely from just a fat loss, a physiological fat loss perspective. Now, those aren't the only goals that you have, but I felt like it was really important to explain that as clearly as I can, and I hope I've done that here today, because losing weight is great, but it's only sustainable and it only gives you the look and the feel and the health that you want if you do it strategically. That's what lasts. So I really hope, kind of key takeaways from today. If I had to boil all of the last 35 or so minutes down into a couple of bullet points, it would be, if you truly want to lose fat and you want to change the way your body looks and you want to have that healthier, more fit feeling and look about your physique, then you've got to stop that dieting kind of cycle. You've got to stop the restricting. Fat loss really only helps or happens and lasts when you stage it, when you get the right approach at the right part of your journey. And when you get that kind of help, you can achieve any goal that you have. Any goal. We have 4 kind of stages that I've named that we take you through. But it's not stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, like I said. It is literally depending on how your body responds and how compromised your metabolism is when you start your journey with us. But knowing how to take you in and out of those stages is what ultimately gets you to that lean life, that living lean, that maintenance, as we all have heard so many times.
That's why so many of the women who come to me saying I'm stuck are able to get unstuck. That's why so many of the women who we work with lose 20, 30, 50 plus more, even more. We've had some women lose 100 pounds, over 100 pounds. It's why they can do it. And years later, they are still keeping the weight off, still happy with their physique, 10 years older, but not feeling 10 years older. So I hope that there were some takeaways for you from this episode today. Please send me a DM, Instagram, Facebook message me, email me. There are lots of ways to connect with me in the notes under this show description. And I'm happy to tell you what I think it is that you need to do in your journey. What is the next step that you need to take so that you can either continue on your path if you're happy with that path, or you can get started on a path that you're absolutely thrilled about the progress that you're making. So thanks for being here, spending time with me, and I'll see you right back here next time.